My mother developed other people's memories for 31 years. That was the phrase she used for her work, and she used it without irony. Not photographs, memories. She ran a 1-hour photo lab in the back of a drugstore in our town. And then, when the drugstore closed, out of a small shop of her own with her name on the window. And then, when film died, she kept going anyway, on the specific stubborn business of the people who still shot roles. Grandmothers, hobbyists, and, this is the part that matters, parents at children's birthday parties, because a certain kind of parent never trusted a phone with the day their kid turned 6. She charged those parents half price. It was a thing she was known for, a small local kindness. Bring in the birthday roll, and Miriam does it half off, because a child only turns each age once, and money shouldn't stand between a family and that. Everyone loved her for it. At her funeral, 4 separate people told me about the half-price birthday rolls, as though I might not have known, as though it were the defining fact of her, and maybe it was. I found out what else was in those rolls 3 weeks after we buried her, when I finally made myself clean out the storage unit she'd kept for 30 years and never once let me see inside. My name is Aaron. I'm going to tell you what my mother was doing all those years behind the safe light half price for the families of our town. I'm going to tell you about the thing that was in the background of the photographs. And I'm going to tell you why she never let me see the storage unit, which is the same reason I have not been able to sleep with the light off since, and which I understood completely the moment I reached the last box. My mother Miriam was an organized woman in the way that people who handle other people's precious things for a living become organized. Every print that ever passed through her lab, she made a second copy of. This was not standard. This was not legal, strictly, though nobody ever complained because nobody ever knew. She kept a duplicate of every roll she developed, filed, labeled, dated, boxed. 31 years of the town's memories in a climate-controlled storage unit on the county road that she paid for every month without fail and never, ever let me into. I'd asked over the years, when I was a teenager and wanted to store a drum kit, when I moved and needed space, when she got sick at the end, and I offered to start going through things to lighten her mind. Every time the same answer, gentle and total. That unit is my work, Aaron. It's private. It's other people's lives in there. You leave it be until I'm gone. Until I'm gone. She said it that plainly, years before she was, as though the unit and her death were appointments on the same calendar. So 3 weeks after the funeral, with the key from her nightstand, I drove out to the county road and rolled up the door of Unit 114, and I found it exactly as organized as I'd expected. Metal shelving, floor to ceiling, both sides, archival boxes, hundreds of them, each labeled in her small, precise hand with a year and a range of dates. It smelled like her. Like fixer and paper and the particular cool dust of a place that is climate-controlled and rarely opened. I stood in the doorway and I cried, honestly, because it was so completely her, this monument of care she'd built to strangers' birthdays and weddings and vacations, and I felt ashamed of every time I'd resented the money she spent on it. Then I started opening boxes because I had to know what to do with it all. And within an hour, the shame had curdled into something I still don't have a clean word for. Because the boxes were not all the town's memories, most were. But interleaved among the ordinary boxes, in the same hand, on the same shelving, were boxes labeled differently. Not with a family name or an occasion, with a single word and a year. And the word was always the same. The word was him. There were 31 of them, one for every year she was in business. I understand that now, I didn't then. Then I just pulled the earliest one off the shelf, 1991, and opened it, and inside were photographs, and the photographs were birthday parties, ordinary ones. Somebody's kid, 6 or 7 party hats, a sheet cake with too many candles, a backyard or a rented rec hall, the fashions and the film grain of the early 90s. A dozen different families across a dozen different parties, I could tell, different houses, different children. And I flipped through them, not understanding why my mother had pulled these particular prints out of the general archive and boxed them under that word, until I noticed what they had in common, which took me an embarrassingly long time because it was exactly where the eye doesn't go. In every photograph, at the edge of the frame, there was a clown. A party clown, the kind you hire, baggy suit, painted face, the whole costume. But always at the border of the picture, never the subject. Never mid-trick, never surrounded by delighted kids, never doing the job a party clown is photographed doing, always at the edge, at the back of the yard, in a doorway behind the cake, half cropped at the side of the frame, in the deep background of a group shot, standing by a fence, present at every one of these parties and central to none of them, the way a stain is present on a wall. And here is the thing I told myself for the first 10 minutes, the rational thing, the thing that let me keep breathing. It's a clown. Towns have a party clown. Ours must have had a local guy who worked the birthday circuit for years, and my mother, with her photographer's eye, had noticed him recurring in the background of decades of rolls and found it charming or funny and collected them. A private little hobby, a pattern only someone who saw every photograph in town would ever catch. That's all. That's sweet even. Then I opened the box marked 2011, 20 years later, and the clown was the same. Not the same costume, the same face, not the same makeup design reproduced, the same face under the makeup, the same eyes, the same set of the mouth. 20 years later, not one day older, standing at the edge of a party for a child who hadn't been born when the 1991 photos were taken. A person who works a birthday circuit for 20 years gets older, gains weight, loses hair, ages behind the paint, the way we all age. This did not. I laid a 1991 print beside a 2011 print, 2 decades between them, and it was the same man at the same age at the edge of both, facing, in both, very slightly, the camera. That was the detail that broke the clown hobby explanation and started me down the corridor I've been walking ever since. In every single photograph, across all 31 years, the clown is doing the one thing a background figure at a children's party has no reason to do. He is not watching the children. He is not watching the birthday kid, or the cake, or the games. In every photograph, from the edge of the frame, the clown is looking at the camera, directly, deliberately, at the lens, at whoever was holding it, some parent, some aunt, capturing their kid's day and never noticing that the figure at the edge of their shot had found the camera and was staring into it, into the film, into the little rectangle of chemicals that would end up 1 hour later, half price, on my mother's counter. I want you to sit with how wrong that is, because it took me a while. A party clown who wanted to be seen would mug for the camera, center himself, perform. A party clown doing his job wouldn't be looking at the camera at all. He'd be looking at the kids, because the kids are the job. This one did neither. He hid at the edge of the frame, cropped and backgrounded and easy to miss. And from that hidden edge, in every photograph across 3 decades, he stared straight down the lens, as if the camera were the only thing at the party he had come for. As if he knew that the picture was the point. As if he were not there for the children at all, but for the photograph of the children and the woman who would develop it. My mother had circled him. That was the next thing I found. In the later boxes, she'd begun marking the prints, a small circle in grease pencil around the clown, in the corner of each photograph, the way you'd mark a defect, and on the backs of some, in her tiny hand, dates. Not the date of the party. A second date later, sometimes years later, with a short note. I didn't understand the second dates until I cross-referenced them at 2 in the morning on the floor of that storage unit against the one thing I had that could explain them, my own memory of the town I grew up in and the families in it and what had happened to them. Let me be careful and exact here, because this is the part where the shape of the thing finally came clear to me, and it came clear through absence, not through anything you could photograph. The second dates were when the families left. Every party in those boxes was a family with the free clown at the edge of it. And my mother, over years, had tracked what became of those families and noted it on the backs of the prints. And the pattern was not that the children came to harm. I want to say that plainly, because it's the first place a mind goes and it is not what the boxes showed. The children, as far as any record I could find went, grew up. The pattern was quieter and somehow worse. The families that had the free clown at the party came apart, not all at once, not violently, nothing you'd put in a newspaper. They left town abruptly, mid-lease, mid-school year, the way people leave when something they can't name has made a place unbearable. Or the parents split hard within a year or two, or one of them, usually the parent who'd held the camera, my mother's notes suggested, the one who took the pictures, simply stopped appearing. Not died necessarily, just stopped. Stopped bringing in roles. Stopped being in the later photographs of their own family. Faded out of the town's developed memory as though someone had reached into the archive and thinned them out. My mother had a word for it, on the backs of the prints, a word she used over and over across 30 years in her tiny hand. She wrote, thinned. This family, thinned, 1994. This one, thinned, 2003. As though the clown at the edge of the frame did not take anyone exactly, but subtracted them, reduced a full family to a smaller one, a couple to a single, a memory-making household to a house where nobody took pictures anymore. And she had kept every one, half price, for 31 years. She had stood at her counter and taken the birthday roll from a young mother and said the kind thing about a child only turning 6 once. And she had gone into the back, into the safe light, and developed the day and seen him at the edge of it, looking at her through the lens. And she had made her second copy and filed it and marked it and said nothing. She had watched him arrive in family after family through the one window in town that saw every photograph. And she had documented him with a librarian's devotion. And she had never warned a single soul. 31 years of families walking into her shop, and my mother, my kind, half-price, beloved mother, cataloguing the thing at the edge of their happiest day and letting them carry the prints back out the door. I sat on the floor of that unit and I hated her, briefly, completely, in a way I've had to make a kind of peace with since, because I hadn't yet reached the last box. And the last box is the reason she did it, and the reason she never let me in, and the reason I understand her now, even though understanding her is the heaviest thing I carry. The boxes were chronological, left to right, 1991 to her last year. But there was one more box, off the end of the sequence, on the bottom shelf in the corner, and it was not labeled with a year and the word him like the others. It was labeled with a name, my name, Aaron. Inside was a single roll's worth of prints and a child's birthday party. And the child was me. My 6th birthday. I remember fragments of it the way you remember being 6. The cake was a dinosaur. There was a sprinkler. These were those photographs. My mother, young in the background of a few, laughing. My father, who left when I was 9 and whom I have not spoken to in 20 years, and who, I realized looking at these, stopped being in our family's photographs long before he physically left. My father, holding the camera for most of them, which is why he's in so few. And at the edge of my 6th birthday, in the doorway of the house I grew up in, half-cropped, in the deep background of the shot of me blowing out the candles, was the clown. The same one, facing the camera. Facing my father, who was holding it. Facing down the years and through the lens and the chemicals and the safe light. The woman who would develop this role and understand in that instant, 25 years before I would, what had come to her son's birthday party for free. My mother did not hire a clown for my 6th birthday. I asked my aunt, one of the few people left who'd have known. There was no clown at my party. My aunt was certain. She'd have remembered, she said, because I'd been afraid of clowns as a little kid, and nobody would have booked one. Nobody booked him. He came free. He came to the one family in town whose mother would spend the rest of her life at the developing counter, seeing every photograph, and he stood in our doorway and looked at the camera, and my mother developed that role and understood and did the only thing she could think of to do about a thing she could not name and could not stop and could not prove. She got a job that would let her see him. She turned her whole life into a watchtower. She kept the storage unit, not to hoard the town's memories, but to hold the one long surveillance file on the thing that had come for her family, because she could not fight it and could not warn people who would only think her mad. But she could refuse to let it move through her town unwatched. She could be the one person who always saw him. Half price wasn't kindness. Half price was so that no birthday roll in that town would ever go anywhere but her counter. She undercut every competitor for 31 years so that she would never miss him, so that if he ever came back to us, to me, she'd know.
Here is one I've had to sit with in the years since I rolled up the door of Unit 114. My mother saw the clown at my 6th birthday and understood that her family had been marked, and then spent the next 25 years watching every photograph in town. And in all those thousands of rolls, across all those years, she never once saw him come back to us. He thinned other families. He appeared at the edge of other parties. But her notes, which are meticulous, which miss nothing, never record him returning to me. She watched my whole childhood and adolescence and adulthood come and go through the corner of her eye and the corner of 10,000 frames, waiting, and he did not come back. I used to find that comforting in the first weeks. She watched and he stayed away, and I grew up whole. Her vigil worked. That's the version where my mother is a hero, and she is, and I hold on to it on the good nights. But I've developed the rest of the thoughts since, the way she'd have developed a role, slowly in the dark, watching the image rise. He didn't come back because he didn't need to. He doesn't take you at the party. The party is just where he marks the film. What he does is thin the family, and my family thinned exactly the way all the others did. My father faded out of our photographs, and then out of the house, and then out of my life entirely. It was just the two of us after that, my mother and me, a full household reduced to a smaller one, thinned, 1994, in her tiny hand, if she'd been able to bear writing it about herself. She wasn't watching to see if he'd come back. She was living inside what he'd already done, and watching the town so that at least one person would understand what was happening to all the other families she couldn't save, including, in the end, the fact that the person holding the camera is the one who fades, and she held the camera on this town for 31 years. My mother is gone now. She thinned last, and last of all, from her own archive. And I am the child from the birthday party at the very end of the shelf, the roll marked with my name, grown up, sitting in the storage unit that is now mine, that I pay for every month without fail, that I have not been able to make myself close, because I've started doing the thing she did. I can't help it. It's in me. I think it was always going to be. I've started collecting the town's photographs. People bring me their phones now, their old albums, their rolls when they find a shop that still runs them, and I look. I always look. At the edges, at the doorways, at the deep background by the fence. I tell myself I'm looking to make sure he's gone, but that's not really it, and I know it isn't on the nights I can't sleep with the light off. I'm looking because my mother taught me, without ever saying a word, that the only thing worse than being marked is being the one who sees him and cannot make anyone believe you. And that if it's already too late for your family, the least you can do, the only thing you can do, is keep the watch and be the person who always looks at the edge of the frame, so that no one has to be as alone with it as she was. I have not found him yet in all the photographs I've searched this year. I want to tell you that means he's gone. But my mother searched for 25 years and never found him coming back, and she was wrong about what that meant. And I am her son, at the developing counter, in the dark, watching the image rise. If you have old birthday photographs, real ones, film from years ago, do something for me, and I mean this with my whole heart. Don't look at the birthday kid. You've seen the birthday kid. Look at the edges, the doorways, the fences, the deep background of the group shot. Look at who's at the border of your happiest day, and check, just check, whether they're looking at the child or whether they're looking at the camera. If you find something, leave it in the comments. I read every one. I read them at the counter, in the dark, the way she did. Someone has to keep the watch. It might as well be the ones who already know to look.